There's no one way of finding the best version of us, but what I can tell you is when you get closer, it's such a noticeable difference to where you were before.
Hello?
The question that comes up so often when you talk about personal development or becoming the best version of yourself is, but how? How do you get there? How do you do it? How do you know when you're at the best version of yourself? The latter question is, to a degree, almost irrelevant. You'll know. It'll hit you like a bus. There's just suddenly life feels so much more connected, and you have a better understanding, and you feel connected is the best word I can use, really. But for me, I started by being truly honest with myself. And look, this is an entirely personal journey for me. I don't know yet. This is the whole point of building the journey in this podcast and talking with more of you. I don't know what the one route is, if there even is one, to getting closer to ourselves and finding the best version of ourselves. I suspect it's subjective. It will be different for different people. But I do know that when I first started this journey, I don't know, 25 years ago, I suppose, when I first started thinking about this when I was much younger, I just didn't quite feel connected with life, felt a little bit like I was just doing things for the sake of doing them, doing things I hated doing, didn't enjoy doing, a lot of peer pressure, and thinking, well, I don't know what, if this is life, it's not especially interesting, is it? There's nothing kind of substantive or deep, or what can I connect with? And so I figured it might be useful if I share my journey this week with, not my journey this week, but if this week I share my journey with how I got closer to finding the best version of myself. Now, I don't think I am at the best version of myself yet. I still see bits of me that I think, actually, that could do with a bit more work. But I can see the progress, and that is utter joy. So, I started by being truly honest with myself. So I hate weddings. I hate the idea of sitting around making ridiculous small talk that just wastes time with 8 other people that I have no interest in ever seeing ever again. I will never see ever again. And it's lovely to celebrate somebody else getting married if you know them or you're half interested. But I've had invitations to weddings from people that I barely know. So I know that we could do a whole podcast unpacking that. I know some people love weddings, and if you love weddings, that's great. Know that you love weddings. But me personally, I'm really not a big fan of weddings. I'm not a big fan at all of, I don't know, wasting time, I suppose. I think that's what this boils down to. Look at that. This is great. It's like therapy. I know that we don't get this moment back ever again. And so if I find myself in a situation where I'm doing something that I'm not enjoying, it's not doing anything, it's not progressing anything, there's no positive benefit to it, then I've got better at asking myself, why am I doing it? And weddings are sort of one of those things as well. It's okay. Some people like chocolate, some people don't. Some people like licorice, some people don't. Some people like weddings, some people don't. Doesn't mean I don't like the people any less, I just don't like weddings. I also don't really like horror films either, or nightclubs. There's lots of things I don't like. So my point is that any compromise I was making, I realised that I was compromising and making that compromise to myself. I was sort of living a life that wasn't really true to me. And so because when we compromise with our true values and boundaries and ideals, what tends to happen is we get fallout behaviours. You get, a little more resentful, or you have to spend time in guilt, or you have to kind of work out what to do with that feeling of anxiety. So I think my biggest piece of advice is to start with seeking validation. Now, that's the most common red flag I see, right? And it's a true indicator that we're far from knowing who we really are. Because what you don't want to seek validation from is external factors. You don't want to seek validation from, buying stuff, or from social media, or from, likes and messages and people sending you comments and the number of followers you've got. You don't want that's vacuous and toxic and nonsense, because you're one of thousands of people that they probably follow. And, you know, it's the click of a button and suddenly you're unvalidated. Well, they don't know anything about you. So that's nonsense. You don't want to seek validation from relationships and love and people at work. And where we need to seek validation from, and where the concept of doing it different comes from, is by seeking validation from ourselves. Because our love for ourselves, our compassion for ourselves, our patience for ourselves is where we fix everything. And that's where we become much better at interacting with other people. We become much more patient, but also you become much more connected to your life, to living a life that feels true to you. You know, I had somebody recently say to me, oh gosh, you've got over 10,000 followers on Instagram. I wish I had that many. I've only got 200. And I said, that's a really unusual, bizarre thing to say. Why do you need 10,000 followers? Now, the reality is I need as many followers as I can get because my job relies on lots of people knowing about me, right? It's a great form of marketing, but specifically for social media, actually, the more followers I've got, the more content I can produce just like this, that helps other people, that makes people think, that helps us to do something different. But I have a personal account that only has, I think, 37 followers. And sometimes I look at that and I think, I didn't know I had 37 friends. There's a few on there that probably have snuck in. I would love an Instagram account with just 10 or 12 people. And of course, now we've got WhatsApp and other things. We probably don't need that so much anymore. But it was interesting how the notion of their validation of being either a better person or a person of note or just the validation, I suppose, was in the number of followers that person had. Now, there is an interesting concept I really love, this idea that the smallest of things make a massive difference to others. You know, that it starts with the benign things that we've all heard, like holding the door open for someone can literally change someone's day. I've actually had the reverse conversation where people have said to me, do you know what, I was walking through the supermarket today, the shopping centre today, and somebody opened the door for me. It was a lovely thing to do. And that's carried with them the whole day. Or saying thank you or hello or welcome or whatever it is. But it's interesting because, of course, we're very good at giving other people advice. We're very good at saying to other people, I think you should do this, or here's a bit of guidance, or I think this would be the right way to look at it, or was that really the correct way to do it? But we're really not very good at taking our own advice. And actually that's used a lot in therapy and in coaching, this idea of thinking about yourself as a third person. So if your friend came to you with the position that you're in, what advice would you give to your friend? Because we're really good at offering advice and guidance and counsel to other people. We're very poor at giving it to ourselves. So this notion of validation in external factors, which I know we sort of flirted with a bit before on this podcast, is definitely a place I would start. That's how you get closer to the better version of yourself, because you can literally sit with a piece of paper and a pen and a bit of cake and some tea, delightful, and think about all of the things that you love doing, you genuinely have real joy in, and those things that you actually don't like, if you're really honest with yourself. It's why I stopped drinking alcohol, because I never really liked the taste of alcohol. I never really liked the sort of loud, crass, the longer that alcohol drinking period goes on and the more drunk people get, the more sort of loud and inappropriate and annoying, and then you get these drinks spilt on you, and then the next day you feel terrible and you've got a hangover and you feel a bit sluggish, and just the whole thing. I thought, why are we doing, and the expense, crikey, the money that it costs to drink. And I thought, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not actually enjoying it. So I stopped doing it and realized that there were other things I could do that I enjoyed much more. And suddenly, when you realize that there's an alternative way, a way that you can do it differently to create a massive difference to how you think, feel, and behave, that is the path of getting us closer to the best version of ourselves. Because then you start to feel genuine, real peace. There's no stress associated with the things that previously you found stressful. and you begin to feel connected. And that is like a tipping point where suddenly then, immediately afterwards, you start to tip the other way and you think, oh, there are other ways that I can feel a bit like this as well. And you can fine-tune that in other things in your life. Like that led me to stopping drinking, for example, led me to the fact that actually I could get up earlier. And I personally don't like being rushed in the morning. I love what sets me up for a really good day is a nice, gentle ritual. And it is a ritual of making a cup of coffee or a pot of tea. I tend to have a cup of coffee in the morning and a particular breakfast, fruit and yogurt and honey, maybe some porridge, and about half an hour to read. And then I go and get ready, and that sets me up for the day. Because I found that process is really important for me. Other people might not need that. I'd love to be that person that loves to go to the gym every day, but it's just I don't get joy from it. So if we're here only once, and we never get this time back, what it has to be about is understanding where we find the things that bring us joy, being patient and compassionate with ourselves, and that slowly gets us to that point, I think, of that point of feeling connected, of feeling like we've got this incredible ability to understand who we really are. Now, it might be that you question friendships and relationships and people you hang around with. It might be that you question what you're doing with your life. I've seen that plenty of times where people think, well, I've done this job for a long time just because I fell into it, or just because it was handed to me, or just because my parents said I should, or whatever the reasons for. And it might be you question that too, and that's okay. Might be you question where you are geographically. But when you start to listen, well, firstly, when you create the space for you to be able to listen to what you want, then you realize what you truly want. You get closer to the best version of you that isn't masking something, it isn't constantly working at covering something up, that isn't trying to be someone else, that all of these fallout behaviors are the things that we spend all of our life really tripping over, hiding from. I suppose it's sort of like therapy for yourself in a way. And you can use guidance and counsel, whether that be Stoicism or Buddhism or general philosophy or self-help or inspirational quotes or aspiration or meditation or whatever it is. You can use any of those things or none of those things. And that's what I mean. I think it's kind of subjective. I think it's difficult. I wish there was one way that I could say, hey, I've found this way to go. And that's kind of why I created the journey, because I wanted a collection of resources to help steer people. If you at ever point never considered, for example, the idea of being on a journey in life, and rather than thinking about chasing to a destination, which by the way you'll never get to because there'll always be a new destination. When you think, oh, everything will be great when I've got a big house, well, when you've got the big house, you'll realize that there's a bigger house you could have had, or actually now you could have a boat, or now we need a helicopter, or now we need a faster car, or now we need more money, or you're never at the destination. Our destination is a graveyard. That's it. That's the human destination. The journey is where all of the magic happens. That's life. We are life. We're living life right now. This is it. And so what we make of it and how we get there to the end, that's really, I guess, the cornerstone of living a meaningful life, of getting to the best version of ourselves. And that's why we should. And so the journey is a ton of resources and collective thoughts and videos, a bit like this, an extended length podcast, and lots of other things as well, to help you wherever you are on your journey, if you're already on one. If you're not on one, to help you get to a journey. Because day to day, it might be fine, but every now and again you question something, or you think, oh, I need some guidance on that, or I'd like to hear someone else's thoughts on this or that or the other. I wanted this week to be a kind of a bit of reflection, really, about where we're going, where this podcast is going, but also where we're going as well, what our journey is as individuals. And I very much think that We have such an incredible privilege to be alive. There are so many people that we've loved and lost that don't get to be here anymore. And I think the people, the defenders of a meaningful life, are those of us who understand that it can be better and deeper and more wonderful. I don't know in percentage terms how often this happens, but I would say 1 in 3 friends of friends I meet are deeply unhappy. They're running away from something that either they know or that they don't know. I'm drinking all the time, making silly decisions, or they're spending tons of money on stuff and they don't have, running themselves into debt, or they're sort of exhibiting deeply unhappy behaviors. And I think if it's that common, and there are lots of things that are making it worse, social media definitely making it worse, lots of other things, then let's find a cure. Let's find a different way of doing this, of living, to get us to somewhere really quite remarkable. Now, if this week's episode has encouraged you to consider your own journey to becoming the best version of yourself, head over to thatjezrose.com/journey to see what I've been building for probably up to the last 5 years, I suppose. I've been building up to this to help you on your journey to finding the best version of you. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and rate it 5 stars if you love it. If you don't, send me an email. Let me know how we can change it, because I do this for you, really, not for me. I'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.